Adam, welcome to our podcast.
Hi.
Today I want to talk to you about whether or not you have taken a personality test before.
We're going to get down to the facts of did it happen or did it not.
Mm-hmm. How many do you think you've taken?
How many? Oh my gosh.
Think about it for a sec.
38.
You think you've taken 38 types?
No,
or
not
just
different
times. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Of different tests.
Yes.
I think when I first met you, you had me take the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah. When you first met me, it was like, hi, my name's Adam. Could you please take a personality test so I know what to do?
Or maybe it was love languages. I don't know. Is that considered a personality test?
It'd be great if the first time I met you, I was like, please take love languages test.
It would be. It'd be like very weird.
It would be very weird.
So 38 times you think you've taken personality tests. That's
Right.
a great estimate in your head. But I know that you have your clients take personality tests when you coach them.
Yeah.
Correct. And how many different kinds of tests do you have them take?
We always start off with 3.
Mm-hmm. Which ones are those?
We start off with, and I pick all free versions of tests online because
nobody wants to pay for that.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And when they sign up with coaching with me, they're not like, we work with a Strength Finders coach.
Yeah.
And so we know when we sign up for something with her, we're expecting that that's a part of the process.
Got it.
But when people sign up with me, they're not doing that.
Yeah. It's not like a personality test focused.
So I'm using it as a tool to help get them somewhere else, but I'm not necessarily,
right.
They don't
like
know they're signing up to
certified.
that. Yeah, right away.
So what are the 3 tests?
So our people take the Myers-Briggs test, which I send them to 16personalities.com, which is a nice, well-designed website that is easy to navigate and the results can be helpful. Do you know your Myers-Briggs?
I am INTJ.
Beautiful. I am an ENFP, or sometimes an ENFJ. My J and P are like 50-50.
Okay. So we're almost opposite. We have the N in common.
Yeah. Which means we're like very vibes.
Oh, cool.
Very like.
I always forget what that stands, like what each letter stands for, except introvert or extrovert.
Just the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
I have the personality type where I don't remember those things all the time either.
Yeah. I just don't think I resonate with the words that they use.
Yeah.
But I
like
resonate with
judging or perceiving. You're like, okay, like explain that a little bit more.
I never really have, but I understand what my personality type is.
Yeah.
So what's the second test?
The second test I send people to is the Enneagram, which I send them to 9 types. So there's numbers in this one, 9types.com, which is a very poorly designed
it's ugly.
and very ugly site that is difficult to navigate, often to the point that when people come in, I show them like I pull up their personality that they got or the results in front of them, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't see this page." I'm like, "Oh, you didn't even know."
Yeah, it's designed very poorly, but it's a pretty impactful test.
Yeah.
I think.
And the Enneagram is a cool test. Do you know what your type is? There's 9 different types.
4,
which is what's the word for that? The
artist or romantic. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
I am the 2, which is the helper.
Yes. A lot of people who work here are 2s. At the
A lot of 2s at the Wonder Jam. So if you're trying to work here and you're a 2, we don't need any more of that.
Can I hear some other numbers out there?
Go to 9types.com. If you're a 2, then
eliminate yourself.
You can go work at a lot of places who really need more of those people around.
Yeah. What's the third test?
The third test is the money type test.
Oh, yeah. This one's interesting. It's newer for me.
Which is, the name of the person is escaping me, but it's Amanda,
yeah.
something.
Yeah, we'll link it in the show notes.
She's awesome.
Yeah,
we went to a
heard
conference and she spoke, and it made such an impact. That
I think we talked to Melissa about that on our interview in season 2.
So she has a blog called Daily Worth.
Yeah.
And I think a podcast. She's doing
crazy.
A bunch of stuff, which is very cool. And she has a money type, which is moneytype.me, so like .me. And that is what I think of it as kind of like Myers-Briggs, but for money. And do you remember what yours is?
Epicure.
And that is?
I want it all.
You want it all so that you can do what with money?
spend it.
You like to spend it, right?
Yeah.
So you like to buy experiences.
And expensive things.
Expensive things.
That are worth it.
Yeah.
Into my eyes.
Which is like such a cool thing that a lot of people I work with get that result. And I think expensive things is like the negative way of saying it.
For sure.
But I think sometimes when you're like, I'm going to go to a nice place for dinner and spend, quote, a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's the experience that you're buying. Like you're buying that whole thing.
I don't recall, but I also resonated with the idea of I work hard, so I'm going to spend it on the things that can be experiential or a great investment.
Yep. And I am the independent. So I like to buy, with my money, I like to buy not needing anybody.
Interesting. I don't think I knew that about you.
Yeah. Which is a cool, I mean, that personality test, one, for a business owner, it's really important to understand what's motivating you to send invoices and bill clients and to do all of that stuff. You and I have said, as we've gotten better with money and our business finances frequently, we're very thankful that we're not in a desperate position right now. Because it helps us treat our clients best.
Yeah.
And not make decisions out of need.
Right.
Which I talked about in the sales funnel episode. And I think a big part of that was me figuring out, like, let my wiring come to the table with our finances.
Yeah.
And be like, let's put us in a good spot to, like, be able to be independent.
Yeah.
And not needy and not,
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, what I've even found is if I connect something like my Enneagram, which the romantic or the artist can very much be constantly aware of or not content with their current surroundings.
Yeah.
And kind of romanticize the past or the future over the present. And I think that paired with my money type, I have to be really aware of not boxing myself in or shutting a lot of doors.
Yeah.
Very abstract concepts, but I think it helps you. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So taking in some of these, these 3 tests that we're talking about, there's a lot more. First, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Are there other tests out there that you feel like have been helpful for people? I know we've done StrengthsFinder. Other things that you're aware of that other people listening might be curious about?
Some people do the DISC, which is DISC.
Okay.
Which is an interesting test in that it tells you what you're like internally and then what you project. So you have other people or colleagues or coworkers or whatever people around you do the test as well. And so I've seen, I don't remember I did that one a long time ago. I don't remember my results, but
I haven't taken
some of the people who do coaching with me will bring their results from other things in, and I've seen that to be like, oh, when you're working or other people see you as like really this one thing, but internally you feel very not that thing. So I think that just points out some interesting things. StrengthsFinders is, I'm a big fan of.
Is it StrengthsFinder?
So just.
I don't think it's StrengthsFinders. I think it's StrengthsFinder. We'll have producer Michael look it up.
It makes a lot more sense.
I'm pretty sure.
StrengthsFinder.
Yeah.
StrengthsFinder. So that's been super helpful. Our entire team has done that, and we have a nice confirmed. It is StrengthsFinder.
Thank you, producer Michael.
I probably typoed that in like all of our docs. I bet.
I might have fixed them all.
We have our whole team has done that, and we have everybody's strengths laid out, and we talk through that.
What are your strengths?
Mine, I actually have. So that test gives you a top 5, and then the test has 34 strengths, and then it shows you your top 5, and then you can pay bonus money to see the rest, which we have. And so my top 5 are.
Can you remember them?
Futuristic, strategic, empathy, developer, and woo.
Love it.
Yeah.
People always go, is woo stand for
woo
something?
real?
Yeah. But it's winning people over.
It's just when you shout when you're excited.
Woo. Yeah. I thought that. I actually think the more interesting.
Do you remember your top 5? off the top
Yes.
of your head?
Maximizer, achiever, significance, relator, and intellection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nailed it. If anyone's listening to this and you're like, I wish Adam and Allie knew my personality types, please just send them to us and that will be fun.
Yeah. And based on my strength of significance, if you just say, wow, your strengths are so interesting, I'll probably be your friend.
Right, yeah. Or if my woo, if you just come up to me and you're like, you really convinced me of that thing.
Yeah, we're just saying how to manipulate
like you really
ourselves.
won me over.
If you really want to win me over, just give me a lot of money and I will, in my epicureness, spend it.
Spend all of it, right? Yeah.
Okay, so you have all of your coaching clients take those 3 tests that we originally talked about, the free versions.
Some of them I make them do the strength finders too.
Okay, and they pay for it.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is a common thread between everyone or a large percentage of them after they take these tests, especially if they haven't before?
So I think there's some personality types that lend themselves to, the reason I do those 3 different tests is one is very specifically about money. And I like when we're talking about their business, some people I work with are like, I just want to work 20 hours a week and like make enough money and spend time with my friends. And like, that's their goal. And that is an appropriate, congratulations, good job goal. Other people are like, I want to hustle and grind and work 60 hours and I want to
Make
whatever.
6 figures, yeah.
And that is also an appropriate thing to do. It's just, you got to know why you're doing the stuff you're doing. And sometimes a few people have caught themselves in the middle being like, actually, I just want to spend more time with my family and like go on a couple of
Even
vacations.
though they talk about
Because in business owner world and entrepreneur world, it's like you just hype either the 4-hour work week where you're like, I made money, I don't do anything.
Or
you're
I work
like,
all the time.
I work all the time and that's just like what it's like and #hustle, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's a good one. I think Myers-Briggs is a really good, easy test to just get I think it's like, to me, it's like the most generic personality type thing. And then the Enneagram is a bit more, tells me about why the desire.
Yeah.
Or like the where does that all come from?
Yeah.
More so than what are you like in person.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more about like what's going on inside of your head.
I've heard a lot of, maybe not even your coaching clients, but people in this space who have taken Enneagram comment that they feel like it's negative. Yeah. And I felt so much more known in not feeling alone or like, oh my gosh, this is actually like how some people are wired. I could see people relating to personality tests even different depending on how, like, this sounds bad, but how narcissistic they are, like how insecure they are. And I see that all the time where some people feel, like, oh, no one can categorize me, and other people really seek out feeling known.
Yeah. There's been people I've worked with who I'm like, I have to become like an advocate for their strengths, even if I'm not doing strengths finders, if they're doing, I remember one person, I spent a ton of time calling through all of their personality results. I don't do this for everyone because not everyone not everyone needs it.
Yeah.
But I went through all of it and I was like, this is how you could be an amazing CEO of your company. I was like, you are like this, which you think is the worst and annoying. Sometimes people look up to others who are not like them. And so they're mad that their brain can't do something as quickly or it can't be. I mean, I was like, I love myself a good type 4 artist person and a good achiever. Yeah. And you are those things. And I love when other people are like that. I wish I was that so much because it's very much what I'm not. And so I think a lot of times people like idolize a wiring that is not their own, and then they just beat themselves up over that whole thing.
You could be like me and not test high or naturally be empathetic, and so you just make T-shirts and mugs and stuff that say empathy is important to remind yourself.
Yeah,
people don't always know that that's why I made it. It's not because I think that I'm better at empathy than anyone. I
post a tweet every couple of months that's just like, just so you all understand, I'm reminding myself. Most of this stuff is like my own reminder.
I don't think I'm better than anyone in this. Yeah. So that's interesting. Just, if you think through, especially if you're a one-person business, you should get to know the one employee or the one CEO of your company.
Yeah, I think it's such if you're a one-person business, that's who you are. And I think the reason I do 3 different tests is because, truthfully, I think personality tests suck. In that we are all complicated, mysterious, deep human beings who have crazy backstories and a lot of experiences that we come from, and every personality test is incomplete.
Yeah.
And
so do them all.
But I think triangulating a little bit where you can say, like, it helps you just learn about the animal that is you, and you can figure out, like every artist needs to have a different approach where you're like, I'm exploring. We sat with this group of fine art students, and they would describe their work like, I'm exploring the relationship between liquid metals and
the female form.
And you're like, gosh, that's like such an experimental thing. But that's their approach, and the approach sometimes is almost more interesting and important than the result, because it's one thing to say, as an artist, I want to create exactly this thing in the future. Yeah. It's another thing to say, I'm going to take this approach. And so I think as a business owner, a creative person, or ambitious person, you just have to figure out, like, how do I need to show up to bring the best of myself there? And that might mean, it's just like, for me, when I think about how can I be most helpful, I end up making the best art. But my approach is to help people, not to something else.
Yeah.
And so everyone needs their own little mantras and approaches, and figure out, like, okay, this is a red flag for me. I should be paying attention here. And I use 3 different tests because I don't want anyone to get too latched into, like, we've all met a person who's like into astrology or numerology or Myers-Briggs or something.
Yeah, they use it as a crutch, or
they hate one of them and love a different one. And you're like, it's just, we all have crazy brains, and we need all the help we can get, kind of keeping us on the right path.
So what have you found in general? Where have you seen this sort of insight? I'm going to call it insight because it's not categorization. It's not like you're this kind of person forever. Where have you seen it propel people and limit people?
I'm going to let you talk about your own story. Because, yours is the first one I would say, because I'm closest to it.
About introversion?
No. I have like 3. Okay.
So many.
I'm going to prep you for the answer I want you to give.
All right.
I want you to talk about introversion.
Yep.
I want you to talk about how we did Strength Finders and how you learned, like, how do you need to schedule and structure your day because of how you're wired. And I want you to talk about when in our personal life, in marriage, if we're going through hard times, how coming back to these things can be useful.
Whoa.
Does that make sense? But I'll give you want to give those answers first?
We'll each answer them.
Well, I mean, when you say how have I seen it propel or limit people,
Got it.
I can think of, I'm just like so close to you.
Yeah.
And watching what it's done for you has been really cool.
Well, I'll speak to the first thing. I think for many years, for most of my life, I didn't really know anything about being an introvert or being an extrovert. And I know now that I think everyone but my mom is an introvert in my family.
Yeah.
And so growing up, a lot of the social aspects like sleepovers and, camping or, Girl Scout camp, all that stuff was like very overwhelming to me. And I was lumped in as being homesick. And I, for the most part, can be a pretty independent person to the point where I can just kind of, I could probably just disappear and be fine. I mean, into the like wild, wild west, not like the like atmosphere.
Not like vaporize.
Yeah, maybe that too. But I realized a lot of the characteristics that people usually like if someone's like, oh, you're an introvert, but you're so social or you're so normal or you aren't awkward. All of those are not real characteristics of being
like
an
school, sports, you're never celebrated as no introvert characteristics are celebrated.
Which is why I did.
And then you get into like real life, and what's number one most in demand job is in tech. And that is like perfectly wired for people who are introverted. And you're like, okay, the greatest jobs in the world, we're like dealing people such damage or telling them that the way they're wired is wrong or not good or should be something else. And you're like, no, it's all the people who make the best stuff are introverts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I think like it's why I did art. It's why I did like, even I was yearbook editor. I could be in like the dark room or the lab with just like one other person. And then being in art school, or not even art school, I was an art major and all of that stuff. It wasn't until I was older where I was probably like 24, 23, and I was experiencing that sort of same anxiety that people would usually lump into like homesickness, but I wasn't homesick because I was like home or I was like with everyone.
Yeah.
And I realized it was just this feeling of lack of energy and I was completely depleted. And I, in 2013, wrote a book with my friend Claire about being an introvert and owning your own business. It's called Charge Up. I think it's still available if anybody wants to get it. But we talk about how if you take care of yourself, you can be a fully functioning human being that people don't even know that you're an introvert.
Last week, you were social every night.
For like the last 2 weeks.
For the last 2 weeks, we've like gone out and like hung out, went to things, did stuff, and we're probably more social in our daily work than we've ever been. Yeah. In that we have meetings and team and stuff, and you're like thriving.
Yeah, I feel great.
So to me, I think when you talk about this, is I've watched it was no personality test. It was like, my life sucked, and then I took Myers-Briggs, and now I'm amazing.
For sure, yeah.
Or everything sucked, and now I did Strengths Finders, and now Strengths Finder, just one. It's one finder, many strengths.
Yeah.
It's going to take me a little bit to get that right.
Okay.
And then everything changed, but it's that like, it's hitting those touch points. It's almost, I think of it a little bit like bumpers on the bowling alley of like, oh, I think I'm way too off over here. Yeah. And I think what, there's times where people feel like they have a emotional or mental or like even sometimes it gets categorized like a spiritual problem. But in reality, it's just like, we just need to sleep like an extra half hour and that's fine. Or, and so I think you start to learn like the engine that's inside of us, what kind of maintenance does that need? And that's very different for everybody. And so I see when people don't take it as like, here's the answers for me. And so I'm introverted. So that means you want me to come talk to you. I'm not going to do that. And I do see a lot of people use these wirings as crutches and sort of to give permission to things that aren't healthy. But I do think when you see it bring people back to center and back to health and back to saying like, I actually really do want to go home for the holidays with my family, or I want to go on that like long road trip with that friend. And I want to be energized for that. And so what that might look like is I'm going to wake up 2 hours early and then have all that time by myself that I get to do. Or for the day before and the day after, I'm going to clear my schedule to be some alone recharge time. The other thing I've seen, I guess for business owners, and I think people who listen to this podcast, either freelancing or doing their own stuff, is I've seen it, and I've seen you do this with your calendar and me with mine, but prioritizing your strengths or your like top goals and letting the other things fade, because I think everybody in the world has 8 million things to do, and we all need to say a big yes to like 10 of them. And we need to say no to a lot of things that seem okay. And this has helped me. And I've seen clients who are very limited in their time, limited in what they do. They don't have enough time to like do everything they need to do, especially entrepreneurs who have kids and are battling like which things do they invest time in. And so much of it is like you just got to take your top most important things and just give yourself 2 jobs you need to do every day and let them be aligned with what you need to have happen money-wise, what you need to have happen strengths wise, what you need to have happen emotionally, and make all of that. Just pour your best self into what you're doing, and realize that you're going to be bad at some of the other stuff.
For sure.
And that's fine. That's just how we all are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I don't remember the other things you said, but we can just keep talking about that, like propel, limit. Yeah.
I think the other thing that's useful, and one of the questions I asked, but we come back to when we feel stuck, or like there's been times in our marriage where we're like arguing, or like you can tell it's just like frictiony more, and you're like, what's going on? And we will open up our personality results and just read through them out loud and realize like, oh, some of that thing that I'm frustrated at is I'm prone to just be this way, or I'm prone to be frustrated by this. Like a person like me can tend to be like this. Is that what's happening? It seems
Give
like
a specific, like not.
So I'll do mine. Type 2 helper is very much subservient all the time, and then will become really resentful of the people they're helping. So earlier in our relationship, I would just be like, Allie, I'll just help you, whatever you need all the time, no matter what. Yeah. And I would just default to you all the time, which type 2s can do, which is awesome sometimes. But what ends up happening is you don't, rarely is that reciprocated back the same way that we give it out. And then we get really frustrated, and we're like, feel like, oh, someone's not grateful for all this stuff I've done. I've done all these things for them. We become frustrated. Yeah. And so it's always good for me to learn, hey, you're like, this is the sickness or the negative spiral that your brains can tend to go down. Yeah. And sometimes it's good that I verbalize that. Right. And say, hey, I'm a weird person, and I'm prone to feel not appreciated after I do a bunch of stuff for people.
It's kind of like
you
owning
appreciate
a little
me, right?
bit of it.
And you're like,
I mean, at some point, no one else is responsible for how you are.
Most definitely.
No one can just, someone maybe out there could just like live around you and your existence. And I'm saying you as just anyone. Yeah. But I think the thing that I've learned is no one else is responsible for tiptoeing around me. Yeah. And even though it can feel like that's a frustration of just like, how dare they? They know that I don't like this. Yeah. Putting that on someone else can, even in a work situation, can be really unhealthy.
And I think it's easiest to just not go there with yourself and just be like, no, that person's being annoying. And then really being like, what do you expect them to be like? Why do you expect people to be like that to you? Yeah. What is it about you that has that expectation? And I think it's easier to just stay shallow. But in reality, people always ask me what my favorite personality test one, or they'll be like, oh, I like this one, but not this one, or whatever. Everyone has opinions. And I'm like, we are all like freaking crazy, infinite. We have like a subconscious that science is starting to understand, which is just basically saying we have a load of thoughts that our brain is having that we don't know that it's having those thoughts. Right. So
like crazy.
We have like a universe inside of our brain. Yeah. That is unexplorable to a large extent.
Insane.
And so we have all of that inside of us. And when I start to realize that I have genius and evil and caring and selfishness and all of that loaded somewhere in my brain, somewhere being that other people do too. And so we just use these as tools to help us navigate all of the stuff. And it doesn't eliminate difficulty. Yeah. It doesn't mean because we did 50 personality tests that I'm never going to be annoying to somebody. Right. It means that hopefully we can like overcome those things together more quickly and solve some of that and learn to understand it's not about that thing, but it's just how we are. And we're awesome, horrible, crazy. And when we learn that about ourselves, I think personality tests help us like dig into that stuff about ourselves. I think you can start to see it in other people and be like, oh, that person probably has a lot of stuff going on that they don't tell me everything about.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah. So it's just I like personality tests a ton, but I like the tools. I don't have a favorite one, and it doesn't matter. And I mean, good luck figuring yourself out. So
Right.
I mean,
it's a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about BuzzFeed quizzes?
BuzzFeed quizzes are better than all of the things we've talked about so far, and I knew the true listeners would keep listening, and I wanted to give them the secret.
Because I just took the what kind of birthday party would I throw so that I would understand which character from Parks and Rec I would marry.
That was key.
And I got John. What is it? John Ralphio? Is that his name?
Which is good.
And I answered seriously. I didn't try to get him.
Yeah. I mean, you got to give yourself to the BuzzFeed quiz or else you're going to get garbage back.
True. No, all of this is good to think through. I think anytime anyone takes the first step to understanding how they are in relation, especially to other people, I think I remember specifically when we did Strengths Finder, I carry there's 4 categories of strengths.
Yeah.
And I have 1 in each category, and that can lend itself to a healthy team.
Yeah.
So as a freelancer, if you're on your own, taking something like that would help you know, I don't have a strength in execution. That's going to be a struggle for me. Because if you don't meet deadlines or if you can't get anything done, or you might lack something in strategy.
Yeah.
That was really interesting to think of whether you're building a team or it's just yourself.
I was loaded in, what are those called? There's 4, it starts with a D.
Of the Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they're 4 categories of strengths.
Yeah.
What were you going to say about
Man,
it?
I'm it's on the tip of my tongue. But I had a lot in the strategy or strategic thinking category. Mm-hmm. And so coaching evolved out of me thinking, how can I bring a lot more of this to the table? How can I create a relationship with somebody in which they expect me to bring my strengths to the table? Mm-hmm. And the more I've done that, even within the Wonder Gym, not even my career, but here, the better everything has been.
Yeah. So it can actually be a really good place to, if you're really torn in how you want to serve or how you want to expand your business or shift, I think a lot of that insight, set it up around yourself. Don't set yourself up for something where you're just not wired to handle. Yeah.
I think if you're in a job, and I even, with our team, when I think, I know sometimes our team might raise their hand to be like, I can do it this, or I would do it this way, or that's fine. And in a small business, in short term, that's great. But I think long term, we think through, our team is very relational. We have a lot of our strengths in the relational building category. Mm-hmm. And when we first were starting, we were like, oh, we don't want to bother everybody with coming to every meeting or all this stuff. And then we learned our team is a little suffocating because they're all back in Productionville and they don't get to build a real relationship with the people they're making stuff for.
Right.
And now they're we're involving them in stuff and they're running things and you're like, oh, now there's a personal connection, which is what they wanted the whole time anyway. Mm-hmm. And it actually makes all the rest of it flow much more naturally. And it just was paying attention to how they're wired and how our team is wired, and can we create a world that people can be themselves and thrive inside of that. Which is great. Cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I'm glad we could talk about this today.
I'm glad we could too.
And we recorded it. That's so crazy. I guess we'll just post it as a podcast.
Oh, is this a microphone?
I had no idea.
Is that producer Michael sitting over there?
We aren't on a date right now. Well, this is great. On our website for every episode, we have links that we're referencing because we referenced a lot of people and tests and things like that. And if you're listening and you like the season, which we hear a lot of people like the season, rate us on Apple Podcasts, right?
Right, yeah. So we're learning all this, but that is that's the golden ticket of podcasts. Which, until we figure out how we're going to get rich off of this podcast, we'll just take reviews instead of money.
Yep.
If that sounds good.
For sure. And if you don't want a review on Apple or iTunes, just share it with someone.
Or just review it on something.